Hello students, welcome back from specials. As you're coming in, I would like you to grab a book off of the table by the desk. Thank you. The book is called Life on the Home Front During the Civil War. And I'll give you guys a minute to get your books. Alright, once everybody's seated, at the count of 5, we'll get started. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Today we're going to be working on recognizing text features in books and also continuing our learning about the American Civil War. To start, who can tell me a little bit about the Civil War? I know we learned about it yesterday, but I want to know a little bit about to review a little bit about what we learned. What is it? It was the war between the Union and the Confederates, the southern states and the northern states. Who was the president at the time? President Lincoln. Yep. Why is it significant? Partly, it was the war that pretty much ended slavery, and also the North and the South broke apart for a little bit. So if it had gone differently, we would be a whole different country. Thank you for all your responses. I think that we have a good idea about what the Civil War is. Who can tell me what a text feature is? It's like a table of contents, yeah. A glossary, yeah. A caption, yes, that's a good one. Anything else? A heading, yes, that's also a good one. A title page is also a good one. Alright, so we're going to look at this poster right here about text features. We're going to read each box. So, who can read the first box for me? Yes, thank you. Yes, table of contents. Who can tell me what a table of contents is? It's something at the beginning of the book. Yep, it lists all of the chapters and gives you the page numbers for each of the chapters. Good. Who can read the next one? That's a title. The title page. What's the title page? Or what's the title? The title is like the top most bold, usually the title of the book or the title of an article. There's also a subtitle, which would be right underneath the title. There's a heading, which if you read it, it'll tell you somewhat what it's about. The rest of the information underneath it. Then the next one, yes, is a subheading. What do you think a subheading is? Yep, it's a smaller, more descriptive heading that goes on with the heading. And then someone mentioned a glossary earlier. So this is a glossary, and what is a glossary? Yep, it defines a bunch of the vocabulary words. It gives you a short definition of all of the words. But we also use our context clues to find out what those meanings are. And then the next one down here, what's that? It's a caption. Where does a caption go? A caption goes underneath or on the side of a picture, somewhere in a word text box. And then a diagram has little words, and it marks where things are. Like on this, it has a helicopter, and it tells you that there's a rudder, cabin, cockpit, etc. Then there's also maps, which are images that will tell you what the map is. Usually has a key on there to tell you what is specifically in the map. Next on our text features are table or chart graphs. Tables usually have data in them, and so do chart graphs, usually with numbers or fractions, percentages, etc. And then we have bold text, italics, highlighted text, and colored text. This is all just text that is different or unusual from the rest of the text. Bold text usually means it might be a vocabulary word or something that it wants you to know that is important for the text, as well as italics, highlighted text, and colored text. Italics can sometimes mean that it's another book, and then you can go look at the other book, or it's a source. And then an illustration versus a photograph. An illustration looks like a cartoony, looks like it's drawn, and a photograph looks like real life. Right, so those are our text features. And while we're reading the first chapter of our book today, we are going to look for all of these different text features. So, today we will be reading the first chapter of this book, Life on the Home Front During the Civil War, together as a class. While we are reading, I will have you guys think about the different text features you see and think about how they are used in the book to make information more clear and concise. So, life on the home front during the Civil War. We will be reading the first chapter of the book. Who can look at the table of contents and tell me what the title of chapter 1 is? Yes, Life in the North and South. And who can tell me what page it starts on? 5. Yep. So what do we predict this chapter is going to be about? Is it going to be about how the war started? Will it be about reactions to the war, tensions, etc.? It tells us underneath our title, it has a little bit more information. It says, one people united and divided, tensions leading to the war, and the North and South reactions. So we think maybe that it'll tell us about the war or how it led to the war beginning, what actions led to that. So let's talk more quickly about the table of contents. In this book, how does the table of contents help you understand what this book is about and how it is structured? Yeah, it gives you the chapter name. Is that kind of telling you what it will be about? Yeah. It gives you more little details. It gives you some headings of the chapters. It also outlines the information from the book and gives you a short overview of what the chapter will be about. All right. Let's also talk about the title page. What do we see on the title page? Now we see a big illustration, and then we see 2 illustrations. Yep, and we see the title of the book, we see the publishing company, we see the author's name. Yeah, and that tells you a lot of information about the book. All right, so while I'm reading, I want you guys to look at the text features. I will choose some students to read a portion, and I would like everyone to read along in their head as we read. So we're going to start with page 2. There's already a text feature. There's a text box or a quote. Not quite a caption, but sort of like a diagram and a caption. So, in Baltimore, we were fired upon from all parts of the street. I heard the bullets whistle about my ears smartly. At last, a stone took me in the head and knocked me down, but I got up immediately and discharged my musket at the rebels, and then kept on the march to the depot. I am here in the hospital with the rest of the wounded. My courage is still good. A soldier's account of the Pratt Street riot in Baltimore, Maryland, April 19th, 1861. And then we have this big picture and a little caption that I'm going to read next on the end. On April 19, 1861, a regiment of Union volunteers from Massachusetts passed through Baltimore, Maryland, to report for duty in Washington, D.C. Southern sympathizers attacked them. Civilians and soldiers were killed and wounded in the riot. When the soldiers arrived in Washington, Clara Barton, future founder of the American Red Cross, tended to the wounded soldiers in her home. So the text features on this page were a caption, an illustration, because it wasn't a picture, there were no cameras back then, and a quote. Alright, so Chapter 1, Life in the North and South. Civil War erupted in April 1861 between the northern and southern states of the United States. 11 southern states believed they had the right to leave the United States of America and form their own country, the Confederate States of America. 19 northern states stretching from Maine to Kansas joined with 4 border states to prevent the southern states from leaving the Union. It took 4 years of bloody conflict and thousands of lives to settle the issue. One people, united and divided. In the early 1800s, Americans in the North and South were similar in many ways. Most Americans were descendants of European colonists, except for Native Americans who were here before the colonies were founded, and African Americans who were brought here against their will. Most Americans lived in rural areas and worked on small farms. Most were Protestants, and there were some Catholics and Jews. Americans from the North and South believed they were living out the democratic ideals their ancestors fought for in the American Revolution. As much as they had in common, Americans had begun thinking of themselves as very different long before the Civil War began. They began to see differences between regions of the country. Most of these differences had to do with the different economies in the North and the South. So, what can we see on this page? We have a chapter title. Yeah, there's a big C at the beginning of the chapter. There's also a header. Can someone tell me what the header is? One people united and divided. Thank you. All right. Okay. So for my lesson purposes, the book I'm reading would not load, so I could not get the rest of the chapter. But I'm going to fast forward to the end of the lesson, or at the end of our reading. I would do ask them for text features at the end of every at the end of every page, and then at the end of the reading, I'm going to have them scroll to the glossary, and we'll look at all the bolded words. And on each page, there are some bolded words in the reading, and I would point those out, and then say this is the glossary where all those bolded words were, and then we would look at the index, which gives you page numbers and topics, and you can find a topic in the book on its own, and I would describe that to them. And then a lot of the text features are headings, captions, and subheadings. Also text boxes with quotes, a map, and then there's a diagram in there. And then, so when we're done reading, I'll say, all right, class, I'm going to have you guys get the wiggles out. This is your time to go get some water and go to the bathroom. Otherwise, we're going to silently do some jumping jacks, and we're going to dance to a song. So I have like a 30-minute dance party button. Once the song is over, we'll be in our chairs with a pencil and a worksheet, and I'll have them put their names on the top of the worksheet. They're going to be in partners based on level of reading. I'll say you guys and your partners are going to go through the book together and find all of the text features that are listed on your student sheet. Now, we're going to do the first questions together. Everyone put their name, date, and number on their paper and write the title of the book. Life on the home front during the Civil War. And then what we're going to do is I would model the first two questions with them, which is there a table of contents, yes or no? And then you explain, is the table of contents easy to use? Why or why not? And then they use the table of contents to record a chapter title, its number, and the beginning page of the chapter. And then they would go down to the next one, sequence and format. Is there a sequence and format? Describe how the text is sequenced and formatted, titles, subtitles, organization. How does this organization help the reader understand the text, etc. And that goes down. So you say yes or no, is it there? And then you answer the questions in the box. And they'll get a sheet just like this, but also one that's blank so that they have more area to write. And then after I model a couple for them, then they'll go on their own. And I'll challenge them to find more, going through the book just to find more. And then to assess their understanding of text features, I'm going to ask them to define what one text feature is on a separate piece of paper and how it is used in this book to organize the story. I'd like them to use one example from the book, not including the table of contents, but something from the chapter we read. And that'll be their exit ticket and my assessment for their learning. Thank you.